Now we will be discussing levy and collection of tax. Section 7 to level. Section 7 Scope of supply. Subsection 1 For the purpose of this act, the expression supply includes all form of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made for the consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. The activities or the transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration. Explanation: for the purpose of this class, it is hereby clarified that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, or any judgment, decree, or order of any court, tribunal, or authority, the person and its members or constituents shall be deemed to be two separate persons, and the supply of activities or the transaction inter se shall be deemed to take place from one person to such another person. Import of service for the consideration whether or not in course or furtherance of business. The activities specified in the Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without consideration. Subsection 1a where the certain activities or transactions constitutes a supply in accordance with the provision of the subsection 1, they shall be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 2. Subsection 3a2 notwithstanding anything contained in the subsection 1, activities or the transactions specified in the Schedule 3 or such activities or transactions undertaken by the central government or the state government or the local authority in which they are engaged as the public authorities as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the councils shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Subsection 3 subject to the provisions of the subsection 1, 1a and 2, the government may, on the recommendation of the council, specify by notification the transactions that are to be treated as a supply of goods or not as a supply of services, or a supply of services or and not as a supply of goods. Section 8 Section 8 deals with tax liability on composite and mixed supplies. The tax liability on composite or mixed supply shall be determined in the following manner, namely, a composite supply comprising two or more supplies, one of which is the principal supply, shall be treated as supply of such principal supply, and a mixed supply comprising two or more supplies shall be treated as a supply of that particular supply which attracts the highest rate of tax. So, have you understood that the composite supply we have to see the principal supply and charge the rate as per the principal supply for all the goods in that composite supply. But in mixed supply, the tax which is highest rate has to be charged. Levy and collection. Levy and collection Section 9, subsection 1, subject to the provisions of the subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called the Central Goods and Service Tax on all intra-state supplies of goods or services or both except on the supply of alcohol liquor for human consumption on the determined under the section 15 and at such rate not exceeding 20% as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council and collected in such manner as may be prescribed and shall be paid by the taxable person. Subsection 2 the central tax on the supply of petroleum crude, high speed diesel, motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel shall be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council. Subsection 3. The government may, on the recommendation of the council, by notification specify categories of supply of goods or services or both. The tax on which shall be paid on the reverse charge basis by the recipients of the such goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipients as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such goods or services or both. Subsection 4. The government may, on the recommendation of the council, by notification specify a class of registered person who shall, in respect of the supply of specified categories of the goods or services or both, uh, received from an unauthorized supplier, paid the tax on the reverse charge basis as a recipient of such supply of goods or services or both, and all the provision of this act shall apply to such a recipient as if he is a person liable for paying the tax in relation to such supply of goods or services or both, substituted for the central tax in respect of the supply of taxable goods, services, or both by the supplier who is not registered to a registered person shall be paid by such person on the reverse charge basis as the recipients, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipients as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such goods or services or both. Subsection 5. The government may, on the recommendation of the council, by notification specify the categories of services the tax on the intrastate supplies by which this shall be paid by the electronic commerce operator if the such supply services are supplied through it, and all the provision of this act shall apply to such electronic commerce operator as if he is a supplier liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such services, provided that where an electronic commerce operator does not have physical presence in the taxable territory, any person representing such electronic commerce operator for any purpose in the taxable territory shall be liable to pay tax, provided further that where an electronic commerce operator does not have a physical presence in the taxable territory and also he does not have representative in the such territory, such electronic commerce operator shall appoint a person in the taxable territory for the purpose of paying the tax, and such person shall be liable to pay the tax. Such person shall be liable to pay the tax. The section 9, levy and collection. Levy and collection, section 9. Section 9, subsection 1. Subject to the provisions of the subsection 2, they shall be levied a tax called the Central Goods and Service Tax on all the intrastate supplies of the goods or services or both, except on the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption on the value determined under the section 15, and such rates not exceeding 20% as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council and collected in such manner as may be prescribed, and shall be paid by the taxable person. Composition levy section 10. Composition levy section 10, subsection 1. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in this Act, but subject to the provisions of the subsection 3 and 4 of the section 9, a registered person whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year did not exceed 50 lakhs rupees may opt to pay, in lieu of the tax payable by him under the subsection 1 of the section 9, an amount of tax calculated at such rate as may be prescribed, but not exceeding 1% of the turnover in the state or turnover in the union territory. In the case of manufacturer, 2.5% of the turnover in the state or turnover in the union territory in case of the person engaged in making supplies specified in the class B of the paragraph 6 of the schedule 2, and half% of the turnover in the state or union territory in case of other supplies subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed. provided that the government may by notification increase the set limit of 50 lakhs rupees to such higher amount not exceeding 1.5 lakhs rupees as may be recommended by the council, provided further that the person who opts to pay the tax under class A or class B or class C may supply the services other than those specified referred to in the class B of the paragraph 6 of the schedule 2 of the value not exceeding 10% of the turnover in the state or union territory in the preceding financial year of 5 lakhs rupees, whichever is higher. Explanation: for the purpose of the second proviso, the value of exempt supply of services provided by the way of extending deposits, loans, or advances, insofar as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discount, shall not be taken into account for the determining the value of the turnover in the state or union territory. Subsection 2. The registered person shall be eligible to opt under the subsection 1 if he is not engaged in the supply of services. He is not engaged in making any supply of goods or services which are not leviable to tax under this act. He is not engaged in making any intra-state outward supplies of goods or services. He is not engaged in making any supply of services through an electronic commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under the section 52. He is not a manufacturer of such goods as may be notified by the government on recommendation of council. He is neither a casual taxable person nor a non-resident taxable person, provided that where such a more than one registered person are having the same permanent account number, the registered person shall not be eligible to opt for the scheme under the subsection 1 unless such registered person opts to pay the tax under the subsection 2A, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in the act, but subject to the provisions of the subsection 3 and 4 of the section 9, a registered person not eligible to opt to pay the tax under subsection 1 and subsection 2, whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year did not exceed 50 lakhs rupees, may opt to pay in lieu of the tax payable by him under the subsection 1 of the section 9 an amount of tax calculated at such rate as may be prescribed, but not exceeding 3% of the turnover in the state or turnover in the union territory if he is not engaged in making any supply of goods or services which are not taxable to tax under this act, engaged in making any interstate outward supplies of goods or services if he is not engaged in making any supply of services through an electronic commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under the subsection under the section 52. If he is not a manufacturer of goods or services of such services as may be notified by the government on the recommendation of the council, if he is not a casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person, provided that where more than one registered person are having the same permanent account number issued under the Income Tax Act, the registered person shall not be eligible to opt for the scheme under this subsection unless all such registered person opt to pay tax under this subsection. Mm, Subsection 3. The options availed of the registered person under subsection 1 shall lapse with effect from the day on which the aggregate turnover during the financial year exceeds the limit specified under subsection 1. Subsection 4. The taxable person to whom the provision of the subsection 1 apply shall not collect any tax from the recipient on the supplies made by him, nor shall he be entitled to any credit of input tax. Subsection 5. If the proper officer has a reason to believe that the taxable person has paid the tax under subsection 1 or subsection 2A, as the case may be, despite not being eligible, such person shall, in addition to any tax that may be payable by him under any other provision of this Act, be liable to penalty, and the provisions of the section 73 or 74 shall mutis mundis apply for the determination of the tax and penalty. Explanation 1. For the purpose of computing the aggregate turnover of the person for determining his eligibility to pay tax under this section, expression aggregate turnover shall include the value of supplies made by such person from first day of April of the financial year up to the date when he becomes liable for the registration under this act, but shall not include the value of exempt supplies of the services provided by way of extending deposits, loans, advances, in so far as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discount. Explanation 2. For the purpose of determining the tax payable by the person under this section, the expression turnover in the state or the turnover in the Union Territory shall not include the value of the following supplies, namely supplies from first day of the April of the financial year up to the day when such person becomes liable for the registration under this act, an exempt supply of services provided by way of extending deposits, loans, or advances insofar as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discount. Section level, the power to grant exemption from tax. Section level, subsection 1, where the government is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest to do so, it may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, exempt the supply generally, either absolutely or subject to such condition as may be specified therein, goods or services or both or of any specified description from whole or any part of the tax leviable thereon with effect from such date as may be specified in such notification. Subsection 2. Where the government is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest so to do, it may, on the recommendation of council, by general special order in each case under the circumstances of exceptional nature to be stated in such order, exempt from payment of tax of any goods or services or both on which tax is leviable. Subsection 3. The government may, if it considers necessary or expedite so to do so, for the purpose of clarifying the scope or applicability of any notification issued under the subsection 1 or order issued under the subsection 2, insert an explanation in such notification or order as the case may be by notification at any time within 1 year of the issue of the notification under the subsection 1 or order under the subsection 2, and every such explanation shall have the effect as if it had always been part of the first such notification or order as may be. The explanation for the purpose of this section, they where an exemption in respect of any goods or services or both from whole or part of the tax leviable thereon has been granted absolutely, the registered person supplying such goods or services or both shall not collect the tax in excess of the effective rate on such supplies of goods or services or both. Thank you very much for today.